Morning students, in last class we have studied that is the structure of the lungs as well as how the mechanism of breathing is taken place. Here the mechanism of breathing is taken place by the two factors. One is called as the pressures and the second one is called as the muscles. So here pressures are three pressures. One is atmospheric pressure, and second one is intrapulmonary pressure, and the third one is intrapleural pressure. So here atmospheric pressure, it is a pressure exerted by the atmosphere. It is 760 millimeter per Hg it is presenting. And intrapulmonary, it is the pressure presenting in between the lungs. It is the pressure exerted by the lungs. That pressure is called as intrapulmonary pressure, where it is equal to an atmospheric pressure. And intrapleural is the pressure exerted inside the pleural membrane is called as intrapleural pressure. It will be a 756 millimeter per Hg, and also consists of the two muscles. One is called as the phrenic muscles, which are present in a diaphragm, and external intercostal muscles present in ribs. So here the contraction of air muscles, due to the contraction of muscles, here a dome shaped, that means here it will consist of two processes. One is inspiration as well as an expiration. So in inspiration, what happens? The dome shape becomes flat due to the contraction of muscles, and the relax, that means the external costal muscles will pull the up, that means the chest cavity will pull upward. So when it is pulled upward, here the volume of the chest cavity is increased. When volume is increases, the pressures are decreased, where 760 atmospheric pressure or intrapleural pressure, which is 760, it is converted into 756, and intrapleural pressure from 756 to 754 it is decreases, where here when the air rushes outside, the air enters into the body. So this process we can call as an inspiration, where up to an equilibrium, that means it becomes to an atmospheric pressure, this process will be taken place. Later an expiration. So here due to the relaxation of muscles, the volume is decreases and the pressure is increases. So that here again 754 becomes to the 756, and 756 is converted into 760 millimeter per Hg, that is intrapleural as well as intrapulmonary pressures. So that what happens again here, the air which is present inside, again it rushes outside into an atmosphere. So here it is taken place an inspiration as well as an expiration. Inspiration means taking of air or inhalation of air into the body. Exhalation means exhalation of air outside the body, that means sending out of the air from into the surrounding environment. This process we can call as an inspiration and expiration, where it takes place a mechanism of breathing, where it is very an important concept. Now coming to an external respiration or exchanging of gases, it can take place an external respiration, or we can call this as the exchanging of gases, exchange of gases. So here the respiration, that means external respiration or exchanging of gases are taken place. Here the exchanging of gases, in this process it takes place the exchanging of gases are taken place. So that exchanging of gases which is taken place here, it has taken place by the two factors. The exchanging of gases are taken place by the two factors. The first one is due to the respiratory. The first one is by the respiratory membrane. The exchange of gases is taken place by two factors. Two factors. One is a respiratory membrane and the second one is called as the pressures. So these pressures we can call as the partial pressures, partial pressures. So due to these two factors, that is, one is called as the respiratory membrane and the second one is called as the partial, that is pressures, that is we can call as the partial pressures. Due to the partial pressures, what happens here, the exchanging of gases are taken place inside the body, where the exchange, that means what is the oxygen is taken place, that will exchanges into different parts of the cells. It passes, the oxygen will passes to different cells. From different cells again that carbon dioxide is eliminated, and through the lungs they are eliminated outside through the body. So here how that exchanging of gases are taken place, that is mainly by the two factors. One is called as the respiratory membrane and the second one is called as the partial pressures. So here this is about the respiratory membrane, the diagrammatic representation. If you see the respiratory membrane, here the respiratory membrane, in the respiratory membrane will having the exchanging of gases is taken place between the alveolar walls of alveolus and the walls of alveolar capillaries. The exchanging of gases, the exchanging of gases. First, if you see the first one, the respiratory membrane, the exchanging of gases, the exchanging of gases taken place between the walls of alveolus and the walls of alveolar capillaries. So in between these alveolar walls as well as alveolar capillaries, the exchanging of gases are taken place. So here it is where you can call this as the RBC, and here it will consist of, that means this is and the respiratory membrane, the walls of alveolus and the alveolar walls, where here in the RBC and alveolar and epithelium, a fused membranes both it is that is taken place, the walls of alveolus and the walls of an alveolar capillaries and also the endothelium. So here the exchanging of gases are taken place. That means here the walls of alveolus, the walls of alveolus are made up of a single layer of the walls of alveolus is made up of single layer of an epithelial cells presenting on the basement membrane, presenting on the basement membrane. They are present. That means here the walls of alveolus is made up of a single layer of an epithelial cells presenting on the basement membrane. Likewise, here the walls of capillaries, also made up of a single layer of an epithelial, that is single layer of squamous epithelial cells, single layer of a squamous and epithelial cells presenting on a basement membrane, So here these are made up of, that means either the walls of alveolus as well as the walls of alveolar capillaries. These are made up of the single layer of epithelial cells which are presenting on the basement membrane. But here you will having in alveolar walls is made up of a squamous epithelial cells, where here we will having a single layer of an epithelial. These are the a simple an epithelial cells, and also will having will having that means here the single, that is the walls of alveolus as well as the alveolar capillaries which are presenting membranes. They are these both these membranes along with these interstitial spaces. Both this membrane means the alveolar walls and the alveolar wall as well as alveolar walls of alveolus, both membranes having a thin layer of a respirator. This is a respiratory membrane. You are having a thin layer of respiratory membrane, where here the gases are exchanging or taken place. That means between the walls of alveolus and the walls of alveolar capillaries will having a thin layer of a respiratory membrane is presenting. So, through this respiratory membrane, here the exchanging of gases are taken place by the process of a diffusion, a process where oxygen is diffuses into an RBC, and carbon dioxide from RBC it is diffuses into interstitial cells, where from the interstitial that is passes to the lungs and helpful for exchanging of gases. That means here from the interstitial that enters into the RBC, where here diffuse through the respiratory membrane. Here main important is in between the walls of alveolus and the walls of alveolar capillary, between them will having a thin membrane is presenting. That thin membrane which is presenting here in this between, having thin membrane is presenting, where that membrane is called as the respiratory membrane. So, with the help of a respiratory membrane, here the exchanging of gases are taken place. So, that respiratory membrane is that layer of thin membrane, respiratory membrane is presenting 0.3 microns in length. The respiratory membrane is length is that is it is thin 0.3 microns in length, it is the size it is presenting, where here in between these helpful for exchanging of the gases between the walls of alveolus and between the walls of the alveolar capillaries will having a respiratory membrane is presenting, where these are both are made up of a single layer of an epithelial cells. And in between will having a respiratory membrane, between these it helpful for the exchanging of gases. Here the exchanging of gases are taken place, so that here that is that exchanging of gases through the respiratory membrane. So, here we will having this is a thin membrane, interstitial. So, here it is having between these are the alveolus, that is RBC, and this is alveolar epithelial. So, in between interstitial, this is interstitial. So, in the interstitial here exchanging of gases are taken place. In between this is a respiratory membrane, where here it helpful for the exchanging of gases is taken place. So, this is the first factor how the exchanging of gases are taken place by the respiratory membrane between RBC as well as alveolar and epithelial, that walls of an epithelial, that is walls of alveolar walls. So, we will having a thin membrane is presenting, through that it helpful for the exchanging of gases. Next, coming to the second one, that second one we can call that as the pressures. What are that means? They are the partial pressures. What are that now we will discuss. Now, coming to the second one, that is the partial pressures. So, here what is the partial pressures means? Air is a mixture of gases. Air is a mixture of gases, where here will having carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, water vapors, all are presenting, where here will having a mixture of gases are having their own pressures. So, the partial that means the pressure exerted by an individual gas on a mixture of gases. That means the pressure exerted, the pressure exerted by the individual an individual gas on a mixture of gases, then it is called the partial pressures. That means here air will consist of a mixturing of many gases are presenting. So each gas will having a specific pressure is presenting. So that the pressure which is presenting by the individual gas on a mixture of gases, then it is called as the partial pressures. That means here the partial pressures it is denoted by the partial pressures is denoted by the letter the P. The partial pressure is denoted by the letter P. So here we will having that is example, if you take in place the partial pressure of an oxygen as a VO2 and the pressure of the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is PCO2. So this will indicates P will indicate the partial pressure of oxygen and P will here indicates the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide, where here that exchanging of gases is taken place due to the pressures, that is the partial pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Here the exchanging of gases is taken place between alveolus, the walls of alveolus, as well as the blood capillaries, that is alveolar capillaries. Here exchanging of gases are taken place. So here the oxygen, here if you taken place the oxygen, the partial pressure of oxygen will having the partial pressure of the partial pressure of oxygen in alveolus is 107 millimeter per Hg, and the partial pressure of an oxygen in an alveolar capillaries or blood capillaries or the blood capillaries is the 40 millimeter per Hg. So here the first the alveolus, that means oxygen is diffuses from where, from alveolus into the from alveolus into the blood capillaries. The diffusion of the oxygen is taken place, where here the PO2 of oxygen is here it is it having 107 the millimeter per Hg, and here the partial pressure it is here will having the PO2 is 40 millimeter per Hg. So here what happens here from the alveoli, that means from through the diffusion process. Diffusion means from a higher concentration to the lower concentration. The blood is that means oxygen is diffuses from alveolus into the blood capillaries. That oxygen is diffuses from a higher concentration to the lower concentration through the partial pressures. From alveolus to the blood capillaries, or we can call them as alveolar capillaries. Likewise, if we see in here the blood capillaries, the blood capillaries of PCO2 is that is will having the 46 millimeter per Hg. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in blood capillaries. In blood capillaries, that it is having the 46 millimeter per Hg it is presenting, and here the capillaries, that is carbon dioxide, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in alveolus, in an alveolus, that is will having a 36 millimeter per Hg. So again what happens, the carbon dioxide will diffuses from blood capillaries into the an alveoli. That means from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Here the partial pressure in blood capillary is high, that is 46 millimeter per Hg, and here alveolus blood capillary, the partial pressure of oxygen in alveolus is 36 millimeter per Hg. So from higher concentration to the lower concentration, the carbon dioxide is diffuses from blood capillaries to the an alveolus. So likewise here from alveolus to the blood capillaries, oxygen is diffuses and carbon dioxide is diffused from the blood capillaries into the alveoli. So here exchanging of gases are taken place. So it is we can call as an external respiration, or we can call that as the exchanging of gases. So that is taken place. How it is taken place with the representation I will show here is we can easily understand. The partial pressures of partial pressures, that is the O2 as well as the CO2, and here we will having alveolus and blood capillaries. So here the partial pressure of oxygen in alveolus is 107 millimeter per Hg, and in blood capillaries that is 40 millimeter per Hg. And here partial pressure of oxygen, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide in alveolus is 36 millimeter per Hg, and the partial pressure of blood capillaries, that is 46 millimeter per Hg. So here what happens in the alveolus, the carbon dioxide oxygen is diffuses from a higher concentration from alveolus to the blood capillaries. Here the exchanging of gases are taken place through the diffusion process. Likewise the partial pressure of carbon dioxide from blood capillaries to the alveolus, by means here the blood capillaries will having carbon dioxide the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in blood capillaries is 46 millimeter per Hg, and the alveolus capillaries, in alveolus the carbon dioxide partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 36 millimeter per Hg. So here from higher to lower it diffuses from blood capillaries to the alveolus, the exchanging of gases are taken place. So this is how the exchanging, how it is taken place in the partial pressure, that is it is the pressure. What is the partial pressure means? It is a pressure exerted by an individual gas on a mixture of gases, then it is called as the partial pressures, where it is indicates P will having carbon dioxide and oxygen. Here it is exchanging is taken place, oxygen is exchange is taken place from alveolus to the blood capillaries, and carbon dioxide exchange is taken place from blood capillaries to the alveolus. This is how the exchanging of gases is taken place by the two factors. One is called as respiratory membrane. Through the respiratory membrane, here oxygen, that means from walls of alveolus to the walls of alveolar capillaries, here exchanging of taken place through the thin membrane, that is called as respiratory membrane. So here also will having the blood capillaries, how they exchanging already we discussed. So this is a factor how the amount of, that is how the exchanging of gases are taken place in our body. Now next we will discuss. Next coming to the respiratory volumes. Next, the respiratory volume. So here what is respiratory volume means it is the volume of an air, that is it is representation, it is the volume of air exchanged during breathing. It is the volume of the volume of the air exchanged during breathing. So this process we can call as the respiratory volume. That means the amount of air or volume of the air which is helpful for exchanging, that means taking of air as well as releasing of the air. That is here the volume of air which is exchanging during breathing. Breathing means taking of air into the body and leaving of the air into an environment or a surrounding environment, we can call as a breathing, where it is a physiological process, where here we will having a different terms are presenting, and here the volume of air is respired by an instrument, or it is calculated by an instrument called as a respirometer or a spirometer. The volume of the air, the volume of air is measured. The volume of the air is measured by an instrument an instrument called as spirometer, is called as the pyrometer, or otherwise it is called as the respirometer. So with the help of respirometer or the spirometer, we can able to calculate how much of the exchanging of gases are taken place in our body. And also here we can able to know, that means here it recorded a meter, it recorded the recording of meter, the recording we can call as the spirogram. That means here when if any defects are taken place in the respiratory system, here with the help of these respiratory volumes or spirometer, here we can record how much of inspirator reservoir volume is presenting, expirator reservoir volume or tidal volume, how much it is presenting, that we will be able to calculate it. That is with the help of showing a graph. That graph is called as the spirograph. And here with the help of these respiratory volumes can be able to, depending upon the rate of breathing as well as respiratory coefficients, and here these are the factors where they are affecting the respiratory volumes also. And the first one, if you see an inspiratory reserved volume, first one if you go for that is a tidal volume. First one is a tidal volume. So what is the tidal volume means? It is an amount of air inhaled or exhaled during normal breathing. It is the amount of air inhaled or exhaled during normal breathing, during a normal breathing is called as a tidal volume. That means the amount of air which is taken place, that means during normal breath the amount of air taken place or the living place, that is inhale or exhale is taken place during a normal breathing, that is called as a tidal volume. This tidal volume will be the 500 millimeter. The amount of the tidal volume is a 500 millimeter it is presenting. Where the volume of air expired or inside during a normal breathing or effectless breathing, the amount of air or the volume of the air, the volume of air or amount of air. Next one, the second one is the inspiratory reserved volume, reserved volume. Inspiratory reserved volume, you can call that as IRV. We can represent that is as the IRV means here inspiratory reserved volume. So the volume of air inspired forcibly, the volume of air inspired forcibly, the volume of the air inspired forcibly in and after is called as in and after above a tidal volume, is called as the inspiratory reserved volume. That is the volume of the air inspired. Inspired means taking air forcibly. When you take forcibly over a tidal volume, then it is called as the inspiratory reserved volume. So this inspiratory reserved volume will be the inspiratory reserved volume. It will be the 3,300 ml. It is 3,300 ml. It is presenting. Next, coming to an expiratory reserved volume. Next, coming to an expiratory reserved volume. Expiratory reserved volume. It is the amount of, it is the volume of the air, the volume of air expired, in and after forcible and expiration, the volume of air expired in and after above the forceful above the tidal volume, we can call that as the inspiratory reserved volume. Sorry, that is expiratory reserved volume. So here the amount of air expired forcibly in and after. Forcibly means taking of air briefly, totally. The term forcibly if you take will expelled outside over the tidal volume. This is called as the expiratory reserved volume. So it will be the 1,000 ml. It will be the 1,000 ml. Next, inspiratory capacity, that is inspiratory reserved capacity or inspiratory capacity. We can call as inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity means the volume of the air, air expired. That means the volume of the air expired during normal breathing. The amount of the volume of the air, inspiratory capacity, where here the volume of the air expired. That means during an expiration, the volume of the air expired, or during the volume of the Now coming to this, the volume of the air expired of a person, volume of air inspired. A volume of the air can inspire inspired by the person after an expiration, so it is called as an inspiratory capacity, where here inspiratory capacity can be taken place by IRV, inspiratory reservoir volume, plus the vital capacity, tidal volume, a tidal volume. So here tidal volume plus IVR, inspiratory reservoir volume plus tidal volume, is equal to an inspiratory capacity. Next, an expiratory capacity, capacity. Here the volume of the air, can expired by the person after an inspiration, so it is called as an expiratory reservoir volume. So it is the expiratory reservoir volume can be taken place by ERV, expiratory reservoir volume, plus a tidal volume. So it is called as an expiratory reserved volume, that is here IRV is inspiratory reservoir volume plus tidal volume is equal to an inspiratory capacity, and the expiratory reserved volume plus a tidal volume is equal to an expiratory capacity. Next, coming to the vital capacity. The vital capacity. So here what is this vital capacity means the sum total of the tidal volume plus inspiratory reserved volume plus an expiratory reserved volume. So this is called as the vital capacity. So that if we see in here vital capacity is equal to tidal volume is 500 plus inspiratory reservoir volume is 3300 plus 1000. So if we see in here the 4300 plus total, it is 4800 ml it is taken place, that is by the a vital capacity. So here vital capacity can able to calculate the sum total of the tidal volume plus inspiratory reservoir volume plus an expiratory reserved volume. Total here 500 plus 3300 plus 1000 is equal to, we can able to get 4800 ml of the volume of expired. It is the taken place, that is called as the vital capacity. Next, coming to the residual volume. Residual volume. So here what is residual volume means the amount of air left over in the passages during normal breathing. That means during normal breathing some amount of the air is left over in the passages only. So that amount of air which is left over in the passages, so that air either it may be an inspiration or expiration. So here during normal breathing the amount of air left over in the passages we can call that as the residual volume. We can call that as the residual volume. After that is here the volume of the air, the volume of air left over in lungs after forcible and expiration. After a forcible and expiration, this is called as the residual volume. So this residual volume will be the 1200 ml it is presenting. It is 1200 an ml it is presenting, where here the residual volume, the volume of the air left over in the lungs after forcible and expiration. That means if you let the taking of air outside the body, when you leaving the air outside the body at forcible inspiration, and expiration, so we can call as the residual volume, that will be 1200 ml it is presenting. Now coming to the total lung capacity. Here if you see in the total lung capacity, here if you see in the total lung capacity, here the lung capacity, total lung capacity will having, that is the vital capacity plus here the residual volume. If we calculate the tidal volume plus residual volume, here total lung capacity, So if you see in total lung capacity, here it is it can be taken place as the vital capacity plus an residual volume. So here the vital capacity is 4800 ml plus 1200 ml. So totally we will get 6000 ml it is taken place. That means for one inspiration and expiration, one inspiration and expiration, here the total amount of blood which is presenting, that are totally will be an exchanging of total blood is exchanging of gases are taken place. So here if the rate of breathing is taken place, the rate of breathing, if you same rate of breathing, if normal in adults, if you see in the rate of breathing in adults, it is 12 to 15 breaths, that is 12 to 15 times the breathing will be taken place per minute, 12 to 15 times per a minute. So if you see in calculated, that is here if you see in the amount of blood, if you see in, that means here the 500, that is a tidal volume. Normal breathing, the volume is a tidal volume, that is 500 into averagely if we taken 12 times. So here we can able to get 6000 ml of blood. 6000 ml of blood is circulated throughout the body, where here totally exchanging of gases, that is here carbon dioxide and oxygen exchanging of gases is taken place in normal breathing. That means in normal breathing means the amount of the volume of air taken place during normal breathing, that is normal breathing means either inspiration as an expiration. So inspiration and expiration, here totally the total blood which is present in our body, that is totally will be circulating and helpful for the exchanging of gases, that is oxygen is taken place by the cells, and carbon dioxide from the cells to the blood. Again the oxygen is diffuses through the lungs, they are eliminated and outside of the body. So here it is taken place averagely 12 to 15 times per minute the respiration is taken place in an adults. So here tidal volume is 500 into averagely if you take 12 times only, then here 6000 ml of blood is circulating, that is total blood is circulating, and also it helpful for during inspiration, here exchanging of, that is oxygen is diffuses into the alveolar blood capillaries and passes to different parts of the body, and utilized, that oxygen is utilized by the body cells. Again by the in expiration, the carbon dioxide which is present in the blood capillaries, that is taken place by the alveolar capillaries, alveolus. From that it enters to the taken place to the lungs. From the lungs they are expelled outside, that means they eliminated outside into the surrounding and environment. So this is the process how it is taken place. So here we will having in these respiratory volumes. In the respiratory volumes will have first one is a tidal volume, Next one is inspiratory reserved volume, and second one is an expiratory reserved volume. Later a vital capacity and RC means we can call that as a residual volume, sorry, RV, sorry, not RC, RV means a residual volume, and the total lung capacity, total LV or LC means a total LC means total lung capacity. So here I am having the tidal volume will be 500, and inspiratory reserve volume is 3300, and expiratory reserve volume is 1000, and vital capacity is 4800, and residual volume is 1200. So total in lung capacity will having 6000 ml of blood is circulated. That is here that is taken place in lungs during normal breathing. That is during normal inspiration and expiration, here the total amount of blood is circulated, and exchanging of gases is taken place between the blood capillaries as well as all of the walls of an alveoli by the two methods. One is by respiratory method, that is respiratory membranes, as well as the partial pressures, here a diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the alveolus, the walls of alveolus, and also the walls of the alveolar capillaries. So this is how it taken place the respiratory volumes. So here respiratory volumes are very important. The volume of the air taken place during normal breathing, that is called as respiratory volumes, where here these are different types. One is the tidal volume, second one is inspiratory volume, third one is expiratory reserve volume, fourth one is vital capacity, and the last one is residual volume and total lung capacity. So remaining that will be discussed in the next class.